Good afternoon, class of History 512. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch this video that I am recording about my final project. So through this semester, I initially started the research project on the idea of American militia and whether or not they were really even a net benefit to the war effort, or if they were the hidden reason why the American Revolution was won. Over time, as I kind of grappled with that research project, I didn't really like how it was. So in the end, I looked at the leadership. What was the leader who epitomized the effective use of militia versus a leader who epitomized some of the worst defeats a militia saw? So in the end, my research project is a compare and contrast of Horatio Gates and Nathaniel Greene and their contributions to the Southern campaign. Now, both of these leaders had a long history of service in the American Revolution prior to the Southern campaign. In many ways, the Southern campaign was the capstone of their service. One leader, General Greene, had a wide variety of assignments, from commanding forts to commanding forces to relieve the colony of Rhode Island at certain points, to being the quartermaster general for George Washington. So he had a variety of command experience and was very, very involved in the logistical train and the supply of the Continental Army. He would get into fights with Congress at certain points. He almost lost his commission because of how adamant and angry he was about the supply situation. Versus General Gates, who seemed to be much more of a political general. He was much more focused on the idea of rank and the Continental Congress, trying to maneuver with his friends in the Continental Congress to at times possibly relieve George Washington of command. General Gates obviously is most famous for his victory at Saratoga, but what a lot of lay people kind of overlook is the fact that General Gates took command of that campaign very late in the campaign. A lot of the preparatory work had already been done, especially with the supply and logistics, by the previous commander. So General Gates had his name in the victory, but even that is circumcised. Some people have questions about, because there's a belief that Benedict Arnold may have had more of a contribution to that victory than General Gates did. Be that as it may, when General Gates took command of the situation in the South after the fall of Charleston, he rushed down to the Southern district and took command of a force under DeKalb of right around 1,000 Continentals, and then also a group of North Carolinian and Virginia militia that had really never seen battle. And he took that force, and instead of setting up supplies and logistics and researching the terrain, kind of rushed forward to Camden to confront General Cornwallis. His initial plan was not to assault Cornwallis, but rather to set up a fortified position about 5 miles away and force Cornwallis to assault him. This plan, as Muhammad Ali would say, didn't really quite work. Everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the face. Actually, I think that was Mike Tyson. So anyway, he tried to push through with this rapid assault, and it just didn't work. He fed his men a bunch of green corn and supplies that probably were not edible by humans. Most of his army was sick, and then he decided right after that to march through the night until they ran into the British around 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. Both the Americans and the British pulled back and then re-engaged in the morning light. Now, even at that last minute, General Gates probably could have salvaged his situation, but he made the fatal mistake of instead trying to assault the British soldiers on his right using DeKalb's force. Meanwhile, the British assaulted his militia on his left, completely routed the militia, and then flanked DeKalb, while Tarleton's cavalry hit DeKalb from the rear. Most of the Continentals were either killed or captured, and the Tarleton's cavalry then chased the militia about 22 miles, routing them completely. General Gates had a bit of a wild ride, shall we say, fleeing about 180 miles to Hillsborough before finally stopping. Probably the most impressive thing that he accomplished in that campaign was that horseback ride. Meanwhile, General Greene was then put in command of the remaining forces that Gates had salvaged from the Battle of Camden. There wasn't really much there. There was no supplies. The artillery had all been captured. And what General Greene quickly realized is that he had to conduct a Fabian War and resist the British without ever losing his force. He had to basically copy George Washington's strategy instead of trying to come to one swift, decisive battle. So my research project really shows the difference between General Greene's strategy and how he effectively used his militia and irregular forces versus General Gates' idea of a rapid, classic European-style battle. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.